honor of serving as the chairperson of this commission, and I just want to remind each person who speaks to speak directly into the microphone, because we record the minutes for legal purposes, and this is the only way to pick up audio. So speak directly into the microphone, please. I'd like to welcome all of our commissioners here this afternoon, and our staff and any audience we may have as we continue our proceedings. The Historic Preservation Commission is a 9-member board appointed by the City Council and serves on a voluntary basis without compensation. The purposes of the commission are to promote the educational, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the city through preservation and protection of buildings, sites, structures, areas, and districts of historic significance and interest through the preservation and enhancement of local historic, architectural, archaeological, and aesthetic heritage found in the city, through the maintenance of the distinctive character of the city's historic districts, and through the promotion and enhancement of the city's historic and aesthetic attraction to tourists and visitors. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask each of our other commissioners to introduce themselves, and we'll begin with the audience right and my left, and we have a new commissioner with us this afternoon, and when we get to her, I'd like for her to introduce herself and in 3 minutes to tell us everything we need to know about her interest in historic preservation. So as the members introduce themselves, from your right and my left.
James Long.
Kamala Broadnax.
Yes, ma'am. Would you tell us everything we need to know about you in 3 minutes?
I am a history teacher at Sidney Lanier High School. I live in the Garden District here in
Can you
Montgomery.
speak into that mic just a bit more?
I live in the Garden District. I'm a history teacher at Sidney Lanier High School. I have 4 children, 2 dogs, 7 grandchildren, and I love history, and I love my neighborhood and where I live, and I want to preserve it for the future generations to come.
Ma'am, we welcome you to the Montgomery Historic Preservation Commission, and we want you to feel as if you are a full member of this commission, and feel free to speak up, ask questions, whatever the case might be. But welcome, welcome, welcome. We'll continue with our introduction of other commissioners.
Carol King.
Dallas Hanbury.
Thank you very much. To our other commissioners, you have in your agenda the proceedings of our action from our June 9, 2009 meeting. What is your pleasure regarding the adoption of those minutes?
I move we accept the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Been moved and properly second that we adopt the minutes of the June 9, 2020 minutes. Is there any unreadiness? All those in favor, let it be known by a show of hands. Motion carried. Thank you very much. We'd like to begin our proceedings this afternoon with our committee reports, and our first one is the revamping of the historic sign program, and our commission members are Carol King and Dallas Hanbury.
Ta-da!
I'm going to Vanna White the sign so you all
Yes.
don't have to touch it.
This is the new historic district sign that will go out to individuals, as well as, in this particular case, we've tailored it for the restoration of the month, which we need to, the program we need to ramp up as well. And that, for those of you who haven't done one of those, you just sort of keep an eye out for interesting restorations.
Hold just a second. Hold just a second. Can the camera see it? Okay, good, good. And one thing that I have already commented on is I really appreciate that the sign is metal.
Right.
So that takes care of the issue of deterioration, I believe, quite mightily. So we just want to thank you all for the historic sign. Now, for those persons who may have a question or a comment regarding our sign,
I will just recap for the benefit of our new commission member. We had an issue with the vendor several years ago, so we suspended the program and decided it was a good time to rebrand because we used the same logo that Landmarks Foundation did of a triangle around the fountain. And we are not the same entity. So we decided this was a good time to break out. And this is the portico of City Hall. And we're going to do the program a little differently. We will have 2 application cycles a year instead of taking them every month. And then those will be reviewed by committee and they will be awarded at meetings in December and June.
So we do have a deadline coming up September the 1st. And then that way, our big first crop of signs, new signs will be given out in December, at our December meeting. So that gives us a couple of months to go over the signs, ask the owners questions, the committee to look at it and review, and then get the signs printed. We do have these, and I'll give you a couple of these too. These are just for handout at certain events, but we also have a digital version that's going out into all the neighborhoods too. So you'll probably be getting something like this from the GDPA, Preservation Association in the Garden District as well.
Yeah, we sent that out to the neighborhood associations last week, into the week before, in the last week or two.
Yes, I got one on July the 2nd. Matter of fact, I have a copy of what I printed off. You can have my copy. I can print off another copy.
Thank you.
Somebody interpreted it for me. Wow, okay.
can we repeat the cost of the sign and how a person goes about acquiring a sign just for our audience recap?
Well, this pretty much tells you sort of what you need to do. It is it's not just because you have a sign now and want to replace it, you still have to, apply again. It's going to include a little bit of history about your house as well, and then you'll write up the application, submit it over to Christy, and then a committee will look over it, and if there's any questions about, we're looking for things that are, new alterations that, well, we're not really looking for them, but that, we don't want, we want to maintain the architectural integrity of the structure as it goes through the ages, in other words. So, and then at the December meeting, we'll have some sort of a presentation program for it.
Okay.
It is
$40,
$40.
which was the same price as the
As the others.
previous sign.
So for 30 years, that's pretty good.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. And Christy, can we just broadcast how to get in contact with you?
We actually added a link to our website. So if you go to montgomeryal.gov and under departments, Department of Economic and Community Development, and in the Land Use Division, the Historic Preservation Commission has a tab on the sidebar, and this has its own link to it, talking about, we've got the brochure, we have the application, we have a link to the guide for researching buildings, and we have the review criteria that the committee will use to determine if a sign would be awarded.
Okay. All right. If anyone has a question regarding our historic sign program and one of the commissioners sitting up here, just feel free to ask us. And don't hesitate still to call Christy Anderson or contact her. But if you just already know one of us, feel free to contact one of us also. Okay? Any other questions regarding our historic signs? Everybody comfortable with it? Everybody feels that he or she fully Where, Dr. Hensbury, do you want to add anything to this before we leave?
No, I think you guys adequately covered it.
Okay, all right.
I think our next goal is to, in the next 6 weeks, to really talk it up
Okay.
in the historic neighborhood so that we have a rush
Sure.
or an onslaught of applications to review for the September deadline.
Sure. And it really is an attractive sign. It really is. It's in my judgment, eye-catching, and it's not a distraction, if you will. And the fact that it is metal is not something that's going to deteriorate easily or fade in any kind of way. So I just want to applaud the work of our working committee for the Historic Sign Program. I think you all did an excellent job.
And applaud Christy.
Yes.
All right. As we continue to move on, education outreach, discussion of future educational programming and funding.
Y'all have a printout of, this is kind of part 2 of an email I sent out earlier, where one of the advantages of working at home is that we could work uninterrupted in blocks of time, and Paula and a couple of other folks in our office and I took our historic properties list, went through the tax records, got the deed instrument numbers for every property that is historically designated, so that we could have those properties, well, they're not recorded. We will have the historic designation ordinances recorded, and all of those properties will be indexed with their corresponding piece of legislation that designated it. So if I'm a closing attorney and I'm doing a title search on a property, there's gonna be a related document that pops up related to the deed, and it's going to be called ordinance whatever, City of Montgomery Historic Designation. So even if they never look at that other document, the title of what that document is should give them a clue. So that has been delivered to Records and Recording. It is in their hands. So the second piece of that is Jeremy Kelly, who's a realtor and a member of the Architectural Review Board, got me hooked up with real estate listings in the 3 zip codes covered by the historic districts. So yesterday I compiled all of the current listings, and after that I get updates. So when a lot of what I've gotten so far have not been new listings, they've been price changes, and they pop back up as new.
And this information is available where? I didn't catch that part.
I'm sorry?
This information is available where? I didn't catch that part.
He set up some sort of portal through the MLS that targets those zip codes to push updates to me, so I don't have to go looking for them. Cool. Mm-hmm. So what you have is, we're going to do a 5x7 postcard. I've okayed the proof of that this afternoon, so they are ordered. And we are going to send it to realtors who have a listing in the district to make them aware that their property listing is in the district, and that staff is available to meet prospective buyers on site to talk about any questions or concerns they might have about purchasing a home in a historic area. I think I'd mentioned before that for several years I taught continuing ed classes for the Montgomery Area Association of Realtors. We did that for free. They stopped asking me to do it, so we'll get them another way. Hopefully, between this and having that showing up in that title search, hopefully we'll get some people's attention.
Okay. Question for Christy. Comments?
This portal, is there any way to make that a public tool of sorts? I mean, that's a really cool resource. And when I moved
What-
to Montgomery, if I had something like that where I could see all the listings in a historic district, I might have been more willing to purchase a home in a district. But I didn't know the heads from tails. So
I have to go through and pick out the ones that are in the districts.
oh,
He put in the zip codes of the
okay,
neighborhoods that are covered.
okay.
But I can tell you looking at a street, and usually even if like South Hull Street, once you cross Fairview, it's not historic. I can tell you if an address on a street that's cut off, I can look at that and do that. So yesterday I went through and there are 36 listings, and I got the realtors and their mailing addresses, and I'm just waiting for those postcards to start writing in your listing at such and such address is in such and such neighborhood, and have a nice day. So
So from your comments, there is no listing of addresses within the historic districts anywhere.
no, not that I'm aware of. Years and years ago, we had some discussion. Okay, this is how long Martha Roby was still on city council. That's how long ago it was. And she had a connection with the head of MAR. And we talked about how we could get them the data, from our mapping system, because all of that data exports into like an Excel spreadsheet if they wanted to port it into their mapping system as one of the pieces of information, and they declined. So,
Well, were you talking about for sale? I mean, there are lists of addresses that are in there through, like building code, whenever you go to pull a building permit.
well, it's flagged in our system.
It's flagged in the system.
It's
so there
flagged in
is,
our system,
but not in MLS.
but there's not a way to go into MLS and just pick historically designated properties. That layer of information does not exist.
So let me understand, so if they go and get a building permit, it would be flagged, but otherwise it's not flagged.
Yeah, assuming they would go to get a building permit.
They're assuming they would go
Yeah.
get one.
Yeah, so that's what flags a lot of stuff right there. But yeah, that does exist, but not for sale. The ones for sale.
And since the county maintains the property records, we don't really have any way of knowing when a property changes hands. The only thing we've been able to do that's been helpful is we got our own account to the probate records, so we can look at the tax information and see that there's some sort of instrument that was recorded, in, we'll say, February 2020, but it shows the owner is one person. Well, we can go in now and look at that deed, see what that deed says and who it was transferred to. And I've actually managed to ding a couple of out-of-state owners in the last 2 weeks by digging back through the deeds to figure out who owned it. So.
Anyone else? Comment? Question? Anything else you want to add to that, Christy? Concluding statement?
There has been, our code calls for, I think it calls for the HPC to be recorded in the property records historic designation. Now, most of our designations were done prior to that ordinance that made that change. So we're finally doing what we're supposed to be doing by law. So I hope it helps. I hope it helps. It can't hurt, certainly, and I hope it will help prevent. Now, some people might get an unpleasant surprise at closing when the attorney says, "Oh, did you know?" But I can't help that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we talked about this, not a condition on the title or anything, but you said, but the issue was that we were thinking about, and I guess this is the only way to address it, I'm just trying to think through it, we're letting the realtors know that they have to comply with these requirements. But, and then there's something in the code about it's supposed to run with the title, but it's not really official. That's what you're talking about, right?
Does now.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be attached to those deeds. Because I can't tell you the number of times I get calls from people who said my realtor didn't tell me, which is the reason, that when I talked to the State Real Estate Commission, because teaching a class had to be approved by the State Real Estate Commission, their criteria is that it has to be of benefit to the consumer and not to the realtor. And I told him, I can't tell you how many times a buyer has said, if only I had known, my realtor didn't tell me, and that was good enough for them. When I taught that class, it was full. We had 70 people every time we had the class. So we just gotta, we'll hunt them down. We'll hunt them down one way or the other. But so hopefully they will be an obnoxious color of postcards, so they'll stand out. And I'll just, after this initial push, just probably send them out weekly, keep a running list of who was sent what when. About half of the realtors on that list I've had dealings with, or they already call and ask me questions. But there are some that might have the random listing here or there that may not be aware. So those are really the ones we need to get.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. As we continue this afternoon, other business and update on First Presbyterian. Ms. Carol King, you want to lead that discussion?
They're still negotiating.
For the benefit of our new member, do you want to maybe explain the background of that
yes.
situation?
Yes.
First Presbyterian Church is located on Adams Avenue.
52 Adams Avenue.
There you go, right. On the south side there, in that very first block. It was built in the 1840s. It has, in the recent 15 plus years, it has been owned by First Baptist Church on South Perry Street, and the congregation of First Presbyterian went east. And so First Baptist has had lots of social programs happening in the whole complex. It's a sanctuary and then a large Sunday school building too. So they've had lots of community-based things happening in there, and community meeting spaces and stuff like that. But in the recent past, they've wanted to take it down and build a more modern building on that particular piece of property initially, but then there was lots of discussion about rehabbing that. So there's been an attempt by community preservation leaders to try to find an alternative use of the property and save it. So they've had several people look at it and are talking to people now, looking at plans, about what it could, be to service the community as well, as opposed to just totally taking it down. So it's a really unique piece of architecture. Well, it is a surviving piece of unique architecture as well. It's a beautiful sanctuary, and it could have another life at this point too, without taking it down. So,
You have any question you want to ask her?
Oh, no.
Okay, all right, good enough. Go right ahead. What's your update?
They're just talking to some developers,
All right.
looking at everybody's plans, that kind of thing.
They
So
being
that's
First
really
Baptist. They being First Baptist.
No.
both, yeah.
Well,
The different sides, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Anything else, Christy?
One of the other things that I mentioned this to Carol, and she's only special because she lives next door and she'll be out watering her plants. I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this? I've been really kind of, we built a new porch rail for our house because ours was missing, and we copied Carol's. We copied how it was put together. and I was talking to John Marshall at Marshall Millworks about the possibility of maybe putting together some sort of pattern book of the different pieces and parts of how you could put together a traditional porch rail, just to give people some visual options and kind of demystify it, so their porch rails don't look like a deck, because they shouldn't look like a deck. They should look like a porch. Because, you know, if you deconstructing the rail like Carol had, it's a 2x4 with a drip cap, with a baluster, with a plowed 2x4 with a handrail. I mean, most of it's fairly simple materials, but when you look at it, you think, how in the heck would I ever come up with that? So he told me today he's got a new molding catalog that I can come out and pick up a copy.
That's a good idea.
But they've also got some sort of machine that will kind of stamp out those scroll work type designs too. So I think it's worth investigating to, you know, maybe do some photo documentation of traditional rails, and then do kind of a little deconstructed diagram of what those parts are. And I think that they'd be willing to help us put that together. So
I think the biggest mistake that people make in working on their porches or whatever is that they like just go to a big box and buy lumber that is 2x4s are not 2x4s anymore. So
Right.
the scale is off, you know, and that's one of the things that when you actually install it, it becomes really obvious. You wouldn't think that, but it's very obvious when you didn't get the right stuff. But and we've been looking for old pattern books, you know. But we've always been looking for pattern books for our houses, just because they're so unusual. But surely they came out of a pattern book, or at least some of the different elements, whether they're interior or exterior. And we just really hadn't found any. But I feel like they're out there somewhere.
yeah, and
you
know, there are issues with if your porch is 30 inches above grade, then your rail is technically supposed to be at least 36 inches tall. Well, you know, my brick piers are only 28 inches tall, so I'm not going to build a deck or a porch rail that goes up above that. It'd look wrong. But there are other ways to address that. So I think that might be a good thing to explore as part of an education outreach type program.
It's a good intra-neighborhood too, because everybody's interested. All the different historic neighborhoods would be interested in it, you know, and can use it as a tool.
Okay. As we bring our meeting to a close this afternoon, is anyone has anything going on you'd like to bring to our attention? Any event that you'd like to bring to our attention?
I do, Doctor. You want?
No, go ahead.
Yes. Ms. Carol King, would you just give us a few pointers on what's going on at Landmarks Foundation?
Right. Well, Thursday night, we have a renovators open house. We're back in again. And Camilla, for that, what we do is, Camilla, sorry. We were doing it every 2 months. We go to a place where someone's doing a major restoration, and we have it open to the public so people can come in and see what's going on, talk to the owners, talk to the contractors and subcontractors and designers, whatever. So Thursday night, we will be wearing masks and safe distancing at 1357 North Goldwaite Street.
Okay.
It's right at the 5 Points at Goldwaite Street, and we will be at 200 Mobile Street too, which is right across the street. It's the old fire station.
Okay.
It's restored as an event space and an Airbnb, and then it's River Region Trails has just closed the purchase on 1357 North Goldwaite Street, and it's emptied and ready for, you know, we like to do before and afters. So, you know, so they'll have some of their plans there, and we'll have one-way tours in and out. So that's Thursday night, and 5:30 to 7. It's going to be really hot. So we're going to keep people moving real quickly up there too. The other thing I was just going to say is you might want to, on Tuesdays, which is today, on Landmark's Facebook, we do flashback neighborhoods. So every Tuesday we do a historic neighborhood, a video.
Okay.
And this week is Garden District.
Oh,
Today we posted Garden District, and it's just little tidbits about the neighborhood, and then some historic images and some new images of, you know, highlighting the architecture of the different neighborhoods. But then it, you know, it's like in all our posts too. We've done most of them.
okay.
The historic neighborhoods.
Right. If you don't mind, what was it last week and what will it be next week?
Good question. Next week I know will be Cloverdale Idlewild. It's the only one I have left. In the last week before it was Capitol Heights.
Okay.
We did Cottage Hill, we did Centennial Hill, we did Cloverdale,
Okay.
Cloverdale Association too. And then I think we'll probably do some of the smaller, more unknown historic districts like the South Peary Street, you know, some of the, or even individual types
Sure.
of designations. We just like to bring to people's attention the importance of these particular properties that you drive by all the time, you know, and that they are historically or nationally, locally or nationally designated as well. And just a little short history and historic images plus current images of
Okay.
it as well.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Hansberry, 3 minutes on
Oh, I don't have anything.
Nothing on the Montgomery County Archives?
Not today.
Oh, okay, good enough. Anybody, anything else? Ms. Broadnax, one of the things we just want to emphasize to you and our viewing audience, here with the Montgomery Historic Preservation Commission, our credo is there are alternatives to demolition. We try to discourage demolition at every instance, and we want people to know that's not your only alternative, to tear it down, because once you do, it doesn't exist anymore. So we try to always encourage people to talk to someone here or somebody somewhere about an alternative to demolishing whatever the case might be, a house, a building, or whatever. So that's why you heard what we said regarding the First Presbyterian Church, because we want those people and everybody else to know that there are some alternatives to just absolutely just tearing it down and getting rid of it. So that's our posture regarding whatever it is in the city of Montgomery. You don't have to demolish it. That's where we stand. We'd like to thank Ms. Paula Wade for coming out from her busy assignment all day, and Ms. Christy Anderson for being with us this afternoon. There being no further business, this meeting is hereby adjourned.